there, welcome to Ridge Church. We're so glad that you're here with us, whether you're tuning in from right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, or from anywhere else. At Ridge Church, we know that life is messy, and we hope the message you're about to hear encourages you, challenges you, and reminds you that you're never alone. Thanks for listening in.
Don't be scared, floaties.
Don't be scared, floaties.
Walk the walk when I walk the street. Can't talk the talk if the talk is cheap. Just loosen up, it's a gorgeous thing. I gotta wake them up to enjoy the dream. This is high vibes, living lavish. Ooh, I gotta have it. This is how we make it move like ooh, va va voom, va va voom.
I love the part where she's like, call me, you know. Well, we're so glad you're here. Like the title package, we're going to go off the high dive in the deep end with no floaties. So if you have your Bible, I would encourage you to turn to the book of James. If you don't have a physical Bible, you got one right there on your phone, and I know that's with you all the time, right? So YouVersion app. There's other Bible apps out there as well if you want to follow along. But I want to get us started. Last week, Kevin kicked off this series, and I would encourage you, if you haven't heard that, go back and listen. It was a really, really great message. I was meeting with a business leader in our church on Monday. We were talking about just how good and how challenging it was. But he started us off with the words from James, the brother of Jesus, that says this. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." And that word trial in many translations is translated challenge. So anytime you have a trial, you have a challenge, he says, consider it pure joy, to which we say, ugh. Like, James, I'd like for you to preach a different sermon, right? Like, that's not a topic that's comfortable for us because our entire world, everything in it is about doing everything that it can to minimize the discomfort and make our lives even more comfortable. So when you get a message like this, it says, hey, in the midst of I want you to consider it joy. First of all, that's weird that when you have trials or challenges, I want you to know that there's stuff that's coming, but I want you to be happy about it. As he leans in and talks about challenge, we don't like challenge. And this is one of the things that we talked about last week, that there is a cost to comfort. Like, our worlds are extremely comfortable. If you're sitting in this room, your world is extremely comfortable. And when we reduce discomfort, this is one of the things that Kevin talked about last week, when we reduce discomfort in our lives, it actually impacts our resilience. In other words, in extreme comfort, we lower the line of what feels like a problem. I'll give you an example of this. This has happened in some of your lives in the last couple of weeks or the last month. It may happen in your life in the next couple of days, weeks, or month. Present company included, this happened. And here's the challenge that happened for some of you in the last couple of weeks. You had a real problem in your life that you had to address. And it started like this. My air conditioning's out. Like, my air conditioning's out. Maybe it was in your car. Maybe it was at the office. Maybe it was at your house. Maybe it was in your dog house. You guys have seen that, right? Like, people attach AC units to their actual dog house so their dog has air conditioning, to which some of you are like, that's ridiculous because dogs should live inside. All right? We have comfort. We have extreme comfort in our lives. Now, let me just say, if someone from 125 years ago could like fast forward and have a glimpse into the future, a little peek into the future to see what our problems are, I think it'd be fascinating. They'd be like, wait a second, you live indoors? Like you have indoor plumbing? Like you go to the there's a bathroom inside your house? And then like, let me get this straight. On really hot days, you blow cold air into your house because you're hot, and you swim in a pool outside that's not a pond because it's hot, and you blow cold air into your motorized vehicle that's moving down the road at 60 miles an hour unless you're on 485. And wait, let me get this straight. Your outdoor dog, that's where they belong, lives inside and has anxiety meds. Listen, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm here for it, man. I like air conditioning. When it went out in my house a couple weeks ago, I did not enjoy my life as much, right? And listen, I love my indoor pets. I like them more than most people, right? Present company excluded, of course. You guys are great, right? They're never mad at me. They're always glad to see me. Like, so I'm not against any of these things, and I don't think that James is either. I'm simply saying this, that comfort has changed how we view and how we engage with challenge. Like as our comfort changes, so does how we think and view and feel about the challenge in our world. And James says this, he says, look, I want you to choose joy. I think it's important that he says this. He doesn't say, I want you to feel joy, because when you're in a challenge, whether it's something you caused or was caused that happened to you, it doesn't matter. When you're in a challenge, the natural feeling isn't joy. And that's why he's saying, I don't want you to feel joy. I want you to choose it. And then he says, why? He says this, he says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And perseverance, he says, let perseverance finish its work. There is something in the midst of challenge that happens, that when we persevere, we don't give up, we don't get sidelined, we don't cross our arms and say, I quit, I'm out. When we allow perseverance in the midst of challenge to finish its work, there is something that it is doing in us, even though we didn't want it. Even though you want to pray it away, you want to think it away, positive think it away. Like you want to plan and strategize it away and get a new game plan for how your life is going to work different next time. It says in the midst of it, whether you wanted to be in it, you caused it, it happened to you, however you got there, let it finish its work. There's something that it's doing, that if you persevere so that you may be mature and complete, that it is doing something else, not lacking anything. In other words, he's saying, so when trials come, when they hit, some of you are in the midst of one, and listen, they're level 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're a level 10 and level 27. You know what I'm talking about? They're a level 1. Like, regardless of the kind of trial that you're in, he says, when it hits, not feel joy. Like, this is why people that read the Bible, they're like, that stuff doesn't make sense when they're out on the outside looking in. He's not saying feel joy. He's saying choose it. And here's why. Because even in challenge, if we persevere, James is saying that there's an opportunity on the other side of the challenge for you and I to become a better and a different, a more holistic version of ourselves. And so essentially last week, as we leveraged the challenge, we said in the midst of challenge, there was a challenge, and this is my words, not Kevin's words, but essentially last week's challenge was this: to grow through it when you go through it. You're going to go through some stuff in life because we live in a broken world. But when you go through it, instead of just kind of twiddling your thumbs, waiting or tapping out, it's like, hey, I don't want to be here. But one of the few things that's worse than pain or challenge is wasted pain or challenge. So when you go through it, let's at the very least grow through it. So I want to pick up where we left off last week. The very next things that James says is this. He says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Now, when you first read this, especially based on the other verses that we just read, it feels like James is changing the subject. Like, I think he's in a new thought, but he's not. The context is still challenge, and this is a promise. In the midst of a group of people that are facing challenge, James is coaching them, teaching them, pastoring them on how to deal with this challenge, and this is a promise. Now, I want you to imagine that you're driving and you have a flat tire on the side of the road. Some nice, good Samaritan, so to speak, stops to help you out. And as they come out, this is what they do. They offer you an ice cream cone. Like, now, don't get me wrong. If it's me, I'm taking the ice cream cone. Like, I'm like, thank you, but that's not what I need. What do I need? I need somebody, like if I've got a flat tire, I need a pump. I need a spare. I need AAA. I need you to hold your hand on my car, call AAA because I don't have AAA. And then when they come, they'll fix my car. That's what I need, right? I don't need an ice cream cone. This is James. Like, if you can imagine, people are in challenge. He says, hey, when you're in challenge, I want you to pray for wisdom. They're like, James, I don't need wisdom. I need to not be in the challenge. Like, thanks for the wisdom, God, but what I need you to do is I need you to heal me. I need you to fix it. And we're praying that God fixes whatever's on the other side of the challenge. But believe it or not, and this is counterintuitive, when you're in challenge, wisdom plays a much bigger role than most of us would ever understand. So I want to jump ahead. A few chapters ahead, chapter 3, and James leading up to this and in this is giving what I would call a series of wisdom challenges. James is one of my favorite books in the New Testament. It has kind of some of the ethos of like Proverbs, the wisdom book, where he starts to give these nuggets of wisdom. And this is one of those wisdom challenges based on what he's already said in chapter 1. So James chapter 3, verse 13, this is where it picks up. He says, who is wise and understanding among you? It's like, hey, James was talking to his audience. He's like, hey, show of hands. Who in here is wise? This is a little difficult to answer if I were to, in this room, say, and you don't have to do this, but if I were to say, hey, I want you to raise your hand if you live in Matthews. I mean, it's pretty easy. You either do or you don't. If I were to expand the circle and say, all right, if you live in Matthews, Mint Hill, Stallings, Monroe, Indian Trail, raise your hand. Like, a lot more hands would go up. It's pretty easy. You either do or you don't. If I were to say, hey, I want you to raise your hand if you like cheeseburgers, all the godly people would raise their hands in that moment, right? If I were to say, hey, raise your hand if you like beer, way fewer hands would go up. But it wouldn't be because people don't like beer. It's like, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to answer that in church, right? Here's the point. These are easy to answer. But if I were to say to you what James is saying to this group, if I were to say, hey, like, if you've got wisdom, when it comes, like, think about your life. If you've got wisdom locked down, like as you parent, as you navigate the complexities of the office environment, as you navigate the complexities of the political climate, like, would you say your life is full of wisdom, marked by wisdom? Who is wise among you? As you think about that, maybe it's not quite as easy to distinguish. And here's what he says. He says, who is wise and understanding among you? And then he says this. He says, let them show it. Now, I love this about James. I would encourage you, if you've not read it or if it's been a while, even as we're in this series, read through the book of James. One of the things that you'll find, and again, this is one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite books of the Bible, is that oftentimes this is what James talks about. James would constantly say, hey, don't tell me, show me. Like, I don't want you to talk about it. I want you to actually do it. Like, he said this constantly to believers. Hey, don't talk about it. I want you to show me. Don't tell me you believe. I want you to show me in your life. In other words, James would say that your life, my life, should be the evidence of the things that we say that we believe. This is how it should flow. Like, in other words, he's saying if there's something in your life that you say you believe, there should be a direct dotted line that goes back obviously to your life. If you say that there's something that you believe about morality, then it should be evidence in your life. There should be a direct connection. If there's something you say you believe about compassion, it should be evidence in your life. Like, if there's something that you believe about humility or integrity or purity or justice, or let's go down the line, whatever it is that you say, like in a conversation at the water cooler, you say, oh yeah, I believe in. James would say, if there's not a direct correspondence to something back in your life, he would assert, and I would agree, that you don't actually believe said thing. That if you say you believe the thing, but the thing doesn't evidence itself in your life, then you don't actually believe it. And he says, I want you to show and tell. You guys remember that? Some of you are old enough to remember show and tell. Like, you bring something in and you show the item to your friends at class, and then the teacher would say, well, tell us about it. Why is it important to you? You know, you show and tell. He says, I want you to show me, and I want you to tell me, but I don't want you to just tell me. I want your life to show it. And then he says, here's how. Here's how I want you to show it. I want you to show it by your good deeds. If you'll go back to the verse, I want you to show it by your good deeds. Here's how it goes. By their good deeds, by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. And then he gives a contrast. He does this multiple times throughout the text we're going to look at today. He says, here's the contrast. Like this is the wise life. This is how I want you to show wisdom or live a life that is experienced or demonstrated by wisdom. But here's the contrast. It says, but on the other side, if you want to live a non-wise life, which we don't, but sometimes we don't want to, but sometimes we do, he says, the contrast is this, but if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, which by the way, that's where it lives, do not boast about or deny the truth. So in this little verse that can be kind of hard to understand because of the way that he phrased it, James is giving two contrasts to a life of wisdom. He's talking about a life of wisdom, and now he's giving two contrasts. And here's the thing. When I read this for the first time, and when I think about this ongoing, this is way more challenging in my life than I'd like to admit. And I bet if some of us in this room were honest, the same would be true for us. When he talks about these two things, he says these are antithetical. These are fake wisdom, so to speak. They don't lead you to a life of wisdom. The first one he says is harbor bitter envy. Where? In your heart. Now, envy is not my particular struggle. By God's grace, we live in a world that's constantly inviting us to compare to everybody else, and I am so grateful that I'm satisfied in my life. And I don't feel like I find myself looking over the fence at what they have that often, and I'm so grateful for that. But let me tell you, this other side of harboring bitterness, man, I can get there real fast. Here's what is a struggle for me. When there's something or someone in my life that I care about, that I feel like wrong has been done to them or to me, like something that's not just. Like in other words, if there's someone that's vulnerable, someone that I care about, again, maybe it just happens to me, and someone does the wrong thing. Like and especially like, and it may seem like as you watch it, like they're getting away with it. You've seen this at work. You've seen this in your family. There's someone that didn't take responsibility for the harm they caused, and it seems like they're doing fine. They make more money than you. Their life seems okay. They drive a nicer car than you. Or even worse, if it seems like they're getting ahead in life, perhaps at the expense of other people. Let me tell you what happens in my life. That just sits with me. Like that can stick to my soul, and it becomes what the scripture calls bitterness. Because I want God to make it right. I want God to get even because I want justice. It's interesting. I always want mercy and grace to flow toward me and justice to flow away from me. Not the other way around. And listen, if I were to share with you today some of the stories of the last season of my and Angie's life and say, hey, let me tell you some of the things that happened. The things that happened in private that the public world couldn't see. Some of the things that have happened to us in the story of our journey, even in childhood. If I were to tell you, you would agree. You'd be like, yeah, I get it. And vice versa. If I were to take the microphone today from you or let you have it, and you were to tell me some of the things that happened to you and some of the things that have gone on in your life, I would go, yep, I totally get it. I totally understand how you could get there and where you're coming from. Now, I don't know how you guys like to vacation, beach, mountains, what your deal is. I love to cruise. It's one of my favorite ways to vacation. And one of the reasons I didn't grow up that way, like my dad would have never gotten on a boat. He got seasick one time, deep sea fishing, and he's like done with that for life, right? And so, but Angie's family, they had through the years, that was kind of how they vacation. And so, first one I went on, there was like fear and trepidation, like I'm on a boat in the middle of the ocean. I don't know how this is going to go, and I loved it. And they had cruised so much that they got these deals, and it was super cheap. And one of the reasons I like, there's a lot of things I like about it, but one of the reasons I love it, Angie and I have a family of 6. I don't know if you checked lately, but that's expensive. And so it was one of the ways we couldn't afford destination vacations and all that kind of stuff. And so it was one of the ways that we could let our kids kind of experience a lot of different stuff, because you would do, and this is the word that he's using, James is using this word harbor. We would port in a place. Like you come up to this tropical island, you would port, and you'd be there somewhere between 6 and 12 hours. And then the boat would push off, go back out to the ocean, and then would port somewhere new the next day and over again. And so in 4 or 5 days or 6 or 7 days, you can end up seeing all these amazing things. And this is what James is getting at. He's getting at this idea that it would port and go back to sea. I want you to, this is the image he's creating. He's saying that bitterness, I'm talking to a lot of us. I don't think I'm just talking to Chris. Bitterness, it has this thing where it will port, it will harbor in our lives. And James is saying, don't let it stay. You got to send it back out to sea. And some of you've done that. It comes in, the thing that happened to you, maybe it is envy, regardless of what caused the bitterness to begin with, something that was hurt, whatever it was. He says, when it starts to lodge in your soul, and I can tell when it's happening, he says, don't let it stay. You got to send it back out to sea. And you do that. And some of you've done that, and it shows up the next day, and he says the same thing. I want you to send it back out to sea. And some of you've done that, but the problem is you still have a child with him or her, even though there's a divorce. And so every time you drop off the kids, that thing comes back to port in your life. Every time you drive by that place and you're reminded of how you were treated as an employee or as a human, it comes right back to port in your heart and your soul. Every time you hear their name, every time you see their face, every time somebody mentions them, comes right back. You're like, I sent that out to sea, and it comes right back to port in your soul. For some of you, there's significant things that have happened. Every time you go to that family reunion, you had sent the bitterness out to sea, but now here they are, and it seems like they're doing just fine, and nothing has happened, and that bitterness just sits back into your soul. And James says, send it away. It's false wisdom. Feels good for a moment, a little dopamine hit to be bitter. He says, but send it back out to sea. And if you do this enough times, what it will do is it'll create a new pathway. In fact, neuroscience confirms this. Like neuroscience says that if you take something and you send it away enough times, that it'll create a new pathway, a new neural pathway that says to that thing, you are no longer welcome in my life. And you send it away, and you send it away, and you send it away. Later, Paul in the New Testament, he would refer to the same thing. He called it renewing your mind. It was this idea, you got to take charge of your mind. And it's very interesting to me. And if you sit here today, perhaps as a skeptic or trying to kind of connect the dots, the study of the brain, the study of human emotions, the study of health and wellness and all these things are just constantly catching up to what God and his word said all these years ago. Just catching up. Neuroscience is just explaining how God did it. But James says you got to push that stuff away. The second contrast to a wise life, he says, you can't have selfish ambition. Now, in the last season of my life, I've had a lot of conversations with God about this in my personal journey. Some of you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. I'm very driven. I dream of more. I dream of next. I dream of making things better, finding better ways to do things. Now, let me just say, before some of you are type A and you're already getting uptight about what I'm about to say, you're like, whoa, Pastor. If you're about to tell me not to have ambition, I'm not going to do it. Like some of you, like you're literally trying to hire ambitious people in your organization. You're trying to inspire ambition in people in your organization. You're like, if you're about to tell me ambition is outside of the Bible, then I'm going to be out. And so let me just kind of let you down easy before you dismiss James or the Bible. I'm not saying not to have ambition. One of the first things I look at when I'm hiring, depending on the position, is a person's ambition score. But here's what I'm saying, and I think this is important. I get it. I'm with you, but there are two different types of ambition. There's what we would call selfish ambition, and there's godly ambition. Now, you won't find this word godly ambition in the scripture, but you will find these two categories very clearly outlined and often in contrast to one another. And here's the problem. This is the conversation I've been having with God. I got to a place where I couldn't tell which one I was in. Like when I was dreaming of the thing or whatever it was, be it for my family, for you guys, for this city, whatever, I couldn't tell, like, is this about me or is this about something else? And let me just frame it a little different. Some of you may say, hey, I'm not sure I'm there on the Jesus thing. Selfish and godly ambition, is it about you or about others? Like even if you say, hey, I'm not sure I'm here to serve God yet, the life that is all about you is not a fulfilling life. Try to live it. You'll find it out. It's a boring life. It's unfulfilling. But for me, a lot of times I can't tell where the bleeding edge is. Is this about me? Is this about God? And so I want to give you how I have learned and am learning to distinguish this. This is my question. I made this up. It's not in the Bible. So if it's not good, blame it on me, not on God. Here's the question. Is this ambition building my brand or God's kingdom? When I'm wrestling with ambition, this is the question I ask. Is this ambition, this thing on the other side of it, if it happens, if it's achieved, is it building my brand or is it building God's brand? Now, let me just give a quick caveat. I don't have a problem with a person building a brand or a business or even a ministry. I actually think it's just really, really smart. But the question is, or the challenge is, if you are a follower of Jesus, and many here today, you would say that you are, the challenge is this: your brand, James would say your life, your brand, your life should build his kingdom. Says these two things are in contrast. He continues to a wise life. He continues, he says, such wisdom, in quotes, because it's not real wisdom. It presents as wisdom in your life, but it's not. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly. Its origin is not with God. It's unspiritual. It's demonic. That's pretty strong. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. This is such a strong warning from James to believers. He said, hey, look, when you allow bitterness, envy to harbor in your life, when you allow selfish ambition, you know what it is? It's about my dreams. It's about my purpose, my life, my future, my success. It's not about others. He says, when you allow these things in your life, he says, and this is so strong, he says, their origin is demonic. Now, when I read that, I got to be honest. This is the first thing I'm like, okay, really, James? Like, you could have just said they're not good. Like, that feels like strong. And then I sat with it. I literally had my Bible open. I was sitting with it. I'm like, why did he say that? And then this hit me. You know who the first one with selfish ambition was? An angel named Lucifer, who was created to serve God, but had an ambition to become God. And he says, when we allow these things to settle in our life, he says, trace the family tree. This is going to take you back somewhere that you don't want to go. And then he gives another contrast. He says, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure. He says that in other words, it's objective. It's not affected by our emotions. It's not affected by circumstances. It's not affected by personal experience. Then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. And then he says this, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. James is saying that in challenge, because challenge happens in us, around us, in our world, in your home. He's saying this, when challenge happens, in the midst of challenge, peacemakers sow peace when everyone else is building parties, when everyone else is building camps, when everyone else is building echo chambers, when everyone else is building walls. He's saying there are some peacemakers, and these are the people that get the wisdom of real life. He says the peacemakers are busy building bridges. And in the midst of chaos, where they could sow seeds of chaos, they're sowing seeds of peace. And he says this, when it happens, they'll reap a harvest of righteousness. This is the image he's creating. Then when you sow peace when everybody else is not, he says it's going to change the landscape. Something's going to grow that changes the view and changes the atmosphere. And then James, he drops in. He gives us a valuable insight on handling trials or challenges in our lives. And this is what he says. He says, what causes the fights and quarrels among you? He's like, don't answer. Let me answer. He's like, you know that fight? You know what's going on at home with the kids, the office, the world? He says, you know, where do you think that comes from. Like when there's fights, oh man, when there's fights at church, you mean there are fights at church? Are there humans at church? He says, you know where that stuff's coming from? He's like, don't answer, I'll answer. He says, I'll tell you. He says, don't they come from the battles within you? This is such a big deal. And he's dropping such wisdom that we would be wise not to miss. This is a huge insight into our culture. And he continues, he says, you desire, but you do not have. So you kill, you covet, but you cannot get what you want. So you quarrel and you fight. And I'm sure his first century audience was like, we haven't killed anybody. It's like if I tell you today, it's like, James, I haven't killed anybody. But sometimes we've killed relationships. Maybe you never killed a person. We've killed opportunities. James is putting this zoom lens on our life. And this is so important. He's saying, is it possible that some of our challenges start within us? They're created by us because we aren't getting what we want. We aren't getting what we want in the political spectrum. We aren't getting what we want in the parent-child relationship, in the marriage, at work. This is brilliant. We don't think about it. He's like, isn't it true that some of the challenges, because we're stamping our foot, because we didn't get what we wanted? Then he continues, he says, you do not have because you do not ask God. I bet this was offensive. He's talking to a group of people in challenge. He said, you know why you're in challenge? You're not praying. Like if we said that to you today, some of you are like, Chris, that's the only thing I've been doing. Like in fact, I've prayed so much and God's been so silent. Like I'm picking up the phone calling and all I hear is him breathing on the other side. Like some of you, like I prayed so much, I'm starting to wonder if he's even there. He's saying to a group of people in challenge, you do not have because you do not ask God. And they're like, we've been praying, we've been asking. And here's the thing. I don't think James is saying that they weren't praying. He's not hinting at the fact that we're not praying, but instead he's hinting at the fact, and this is such a big idea. He's hinting at the fact that maybe we're praying the wrong thing. Saying oftentimes our prayers ask God to only address the external thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes God changes the external. But rarely do we ask God to address what's in us. And this is what he's getting at. If I can paraphrase, this is what James is saying. Sometimes the challenge we are in is directly related to what's in us. To which some of you mentally will argue, like, whoa, okay. Chris, that divorce happened to me. They had an affair. Chris, I didn't do anything wrong and I still lost the job. Chris, I got cancer. That didn't happen in me. That happened to me. And here's what I would say. I understand that not every single challenge that you and I will face in life is something that happens to us, but happens in us. There are things that happen to us, but many of the challenges originate from within. And let me say this as well. When the challenge is external, even how we respond to it will be based oftentimes on something that's happening and connected to what's within us. So I want to give you an illustration, and then I'll give you a couple of challenges, and we'll be done. How many of you are familiar? You don't point, but you're familiar with the term helicopter parent? A little snicker. You're like, where are we going? You'll see. So there's a new term. That's like the outdated one. It's evolved, right? So the new term is lawnmower parent. And some of you have never heard of that. There were some on my team that hadn't heard. It was pretty divided. And so I want to give you the definition of a lawnmower parent. A lawnmower parent is a mother or father who proactively eliminates obstacles, frustrations, and potential failures from their child's path to guarantee immediate success and happiness. Now, if you were internally arguing with this right now, you might be a lawnmower parent. Like you're like, that's not a thing. Now, let me tell you, this is what the idea is. The lawnmower parent literally mows down anything that could touch, challenge, or cause discomfort for a child. We handle their disagreements for them. I'm going to send a strongly worded email to that coach. I'm going to text them, and I'm using emojis, all right? We take it for them. Like this is where like we try to fill every second of their precious little lives, every second of their day with activities because God forbid they would be bored. Listen, boredom was unlocked my superpower as a kid. Like when I was bored, it was imagination. I started to create things and dream of things. I also got in some trouble as a result of that. But even that wasn't bad because I learned consequences. If I do that, that hurts. I shouldn't do that again. Sometimes as these lawnmower parents, we bubble wrap the playground metaphorically or the kid for the playground because we don't want them to get hurt. And we're putting helmets on them, sending them into the playground. Like when I was maybe 10 years old, I remember I got introduced to the Honda 50. Any of you guys, like any of you old enough to remember the Honda 50? See, we were not a motorcycle family. My dad had a friend that got hurt on a motorcycle involving a chain link fence, barbed wire fence. We won't talk about that anymore, but it was bad. And so we didn't do motorcycles. But my buddy Russ, his family, they were motorcycle people. And so I'm just telling you, my dad we had cool stuff. We had these cool go-karts. But when you're riding a go-kart next to the kid on the Honda 50, you don't feel cool. Right. And so when I went over, my dad had told me, you're not supposed to, I don't want you riding motorcycles. And so I pretended like that only existed at my house. When I went to my friend Russ's house, I got on his Honda 50 and y'all, I was cool for about 15 seconds until I bit it. Like I was trying to, I did not have any respect for this machine. And I skinned my leg up like in a way you can't believe. I'm talking about messed up the whole summer kind of situation. But let me just tell you what happened. I forever engaged with and had a different level of respect and perhaps some healthy and some unhealthy that a counselor could unpack with me for motorcycles. And here's a principle. If we allow kids to skin their knee when the stakes are low, then maybe they won't lose their leg when the stakes are higher because they've learned. Researchers say, and mental health experts say that this kind of mentality of helicopter parenting or lawnmower parenting actually prevents a child from developing essential life skills. Things like resilience, problem solving, independence. And the result is the next time they're in the situation, and it's not if, it's when, the next time they're in the situation, they don't have the skills or the resilience to deal with it. To which some of you are like, what are we even talking about? Are we still in the book of James? Let me tell you, this is so important. Don't miss this. If you checked out, check back in. I think sometimes, without realizing it, we're asking God to be a lawnmower parent to us, to remove everything that challenges, everything that bores us, anything that could touch us, anything that could cause discomfort. And I'm with you. I don't want to feel challenge or pain either. But on the other side, if we persevere, with God's help, we emerge different. And this is what James is getting at. Sometimes the biggest and the most significant work in us is in us, so that the next time we will be prepared to deal with the challenges that are outside of us. And yes, you should still pray that God removes the challenge. But if he doesn't, let perseverance finish its work, because it's doing something to make you a different and better version of yourself than the one that currently exists, so that we don't end up in a perpetual childlike state. Now, I know I covered a lot of ground today in the book of James, so I want to end with 3 challenges that I hope you'll accept. Because the whole idea of this series is like, when you're in the challenge, accept what God wants to do in the challenge in your life. Again, pray that God removes it, but if he doesn't, accept that God wants to do something to make you mature and complete. And so I want to give you 3 individual challenges from today. The first one is this: challenge you to test your ambition. Like, just test your ambitions this week. As you feel motivated and driven to do the thing, whatever it is, just ask yourself, is this selfish or is this godly? If you're not a follower of Jesus, is this selfish or is this about others? Because even if you're not a follower of Jesus, living for the sake of others and in view of others is a better way to live your life, and it's more fulfilling. But as Jesus followers, this is not an option. The question is this ambition building my brand or God's kingdom? The second challenge is this: I want to challenge you to sow peace. Before the day is over, you will have an opportunity to stir things up. Like, it's just like there, and it's low-hanging fruit. They're everywhere. Don't do it. You want to live a life marked by wisdom, a different kind of life? I challenge you to sow peace. Even if you're not a believer, this is going to make the world around you better. Again, if you're a believer, it's not an option. It says, I would say, pray this week that God makes you aware of opportunities to sow peace. Not to stir things up. Years ago, we had this guy that ran in our circles, and I didn't nickname him this, but I did laugh, and it was true. They nicknamed him Stir Stick. Like the thing you stir the coffee with, because he was just stirring stuff up all the time. Like every time he turned around, he's like poking the bear. Like he was always baiting people on social media, emotional clickbait. He was like trolling people in their comments and stirring stuff up. Don't be a stir stick. This is what James is saying, like, sow peace. The next moment that you have as an opportunity to stir something up, you want to create a new neural pathway, then sow peace. In other words, sow peace, you will reap a harvest of righteousness. It will grow into a different kind of atmosphere around you eventually. The last one is this, and this is the hardest one. I challenge you to address what's in you, not just what's around you. I encourage you to take a picture of this. Take it with you this week. Challenge is to address what's in you, not just what's around you. Let me say this. For some of us in this room, maybe this is your story current, maybe it's your story past, maybe it's an ongoing struggle. You've turned to some form of external comfort to address the internal discomfort that you feel. It's a dopamine hit. I mean, every time we go to something external to address what's going on inside of us, there is just a moment that dopamine makes us forget or not feel it, but it's temporary, and then it comes back, and so we got to get another dopamine hit. For some of you, this looks like sports gambling because it's so accessible in your pocket. It's one of the fastest growing addictions in our world. It's just a quick hit to escape. For many, this is pornography, and pornography for some, it has nothing to do with sexuality. It has to do with avoiding something that's on the inside, and it's a dopamine hit. Maybe it's that next purchase, one more purchase. It's that next trip to the restaurant, to the refrigerator, and it's a dopamine hit to temporarily, externally address something that's happening internally. It's why there's over drinking and overstimulating with drugs or whatever it is. And oftentimes it's to mask what's going on inside. And so here's the challenge. This is so hard. Sometimes we got to pop the hood of our life and just ask ourselves, why do I need external comfort? What's going on underneath? What's going on inside? James says that the battles that we have, most of them come from the desires where? Within us. So what's the cause of the internal discomfort? Is it guilt or something you did, something that happened to you? Is it loneliness? Is it failure? Guilt and shame, the enemy uses these. Is it something that happened to you, or again, something that you did? And look, you may need a mentor, you may need a friend group, you may need a counselor to help you unpack these things and to walk through and navigate and discover. And you'll certainly need some courage, but you'll be glad that you did. And I'm just telling you, this is more than a willpower thing. So pray about it, but pray about the things that are in you, not just for God to remove what's around you. Years ago, and this is my last thing, I heard this quote. I'll never forget it. The first person I heard to say this quote was Andy Stanley. I don't know if it came from him, but I'm giving him credit for it. He said this: change happens when the pain of the same becomes greater than the pain of change. Some of you are there. You've had enough. It's time to change, to step towards a life of wisdom. And for those of you that aren't there yet, put this in your pocket for when you are. And I want to encourage you, some of you are sitting in this room and you're just, as I'm talking about it, you're like, but Chris, if I could just tell you my challenge, you'd realize that pithy little sermon you just said, like that, it's just, I don't know how to do that. I'm just telling you, if you're experiencing something right now that you feel like will never change, you can change. God can change it too, and you should pray for that. But I want to encourage you to persevere. Don't give up. God is doing a maturing work in you. And sometimes God lifts the load, and I'm so grateful for that. But sometimes he makes our shoulders stronger so that the next time that same thing It doesn't affect us in the same way. We become mature because of what we persevered through. And so I just want to say it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for your word. I just am so humbled to be able to teach it. And I'm so humbled that as a creator, that you chose to allow your word to be preserved. And that here we sit all these thousands of years later after it was written down, and it is so relevant. And so today I pray that, God, this would be more than just a moral teaching, but that, God, will you be invited to consider the God who said these things. God, I pray for those that are walking through challenge today. Will you meet them in it? Will you remind them, God? For others, I pray that you would remove the thing that just feels too heavy. But when you choose not to, God, will you give us perseverance and allow it to finish the work of maturing us in the way that you see fit. We love you. In Jesus' precious and powerful name we pray. Amen. Well, I want to thank you guys.
Thanks for listening today. If you're in the Charlotte or Matthews, North Carolina area, you're always invited to catch us online or join us in person at one of our 2 service experiences, 9:30 and 11 a.m. in the Ridge Auditorium, or streaming live to our cafe venue. We hope to see you soon.